Hey everyone. So I thought it'd be a good idea for me to do a more stream of thought freeform post. This would allow me to talk through the blog post, kind of contextualize some of the very first video I posted on my rhetorical analysis of Vivek's Republican candidate speech. And specifically, I'm doing step one of the rhetorical speech model, which is the line of reasoning step. So this is the first time I'm stepping through this, and I'm pretty sure that I like the steps that I've come up with. I could always change it in the future. But yeah, I think it's really important to give the viewers, a little more context and, kind of fill in some of the gaps, because I think first time around I was really trying to summarize the videos, and I may have over summarized, but I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out. But either way, I was going to step through the blog post here, and yeah, let's get to that. So, of course, the blog post is linked in the description, as always, and you can kind of see my intentions here. The table of contents, so I go into just the general details of the speech itself, a very rhetorical situation, a traditional rhetorical situation that I documented. A lot of these things I kind of do for SEO purposes in hopes of kind of getting a little more traffic as well, just kind of get some text on the page. Really, when I thought about this blog, the main thing is a home for the data dashboards, but you do need some textual context. So I think the blog posts are important. So again, table of contents, the details, the rhetorical situation, the thesis and line of reasoning. Here's the free quiz, line of reasoning quiz for anyone who just wants to test their line of reasoning skills. Then the data analysis, and then just a speech arrangement summary, which is just something that I initially did just to really try to organize my thoughts around the speech. So I'm not sure. Hopefully everyone's decently aware of who Vivek Ramaswamy is. I'd never heard of him before, and then it was in 2023 when I ran across one of his Republican candidate speeches, and I just thought it was a good speech, so I started watching a little more of his content, and I just found him to be such a great critical thinker and such a great speaker. It's hard for me to say if I would have voted for him in the end. I did want him to be the Republican candidate, but selfishly, it was kind of more that I just really wanted to see him in a real debate, because I think he could out debate anybody, and it really would have been fun to watch. But yeah, let's keep going through the blog post. So the analysis details. So here's a link to the speech itself. Let's make sure it works. Yeah, there it is. Presidential candidate. Whoa, that's loud. So you can watch it. That is what I initially did. I did watch it first. So of course this is him. That's Vivek Ramaswamy. Campaign slogan. His campaign slogan was truth. That's also the name of his new book, which just came out this year. The date of speech was June 23rd, 2023. Speech length 14 minutes. Not too long. Now, I'm going to try to pick speeches around about that length. That's why it's very hard for me to find a Trump speech. They're really long, and they're really not speeches either. He just kind of rambles. But I would love to do something on Trump too, just because it would be so different. In contrast to Vivek, in terms of critical thinking and word usage and everything else. Excuse me. So the speech text is here, and so this is where I would definitely, this is just a transcription that I did from the YouTube speech, but I did share this, so, and it's linked here. And for anyone who wants to follow along with this process with me, I would encourage you to do exactly what I did. You can watch the video first, and then read the speech. Obviously, reading the speech is really important. I'm just trying to practice my critical reading competency, and hopefully when I get better at rhetoric, as I read, I can really, these things will just pop right out at me. At the moment, like I said, I'm still learning, but hopefully I'll be able to spot rhetorical appeals, rhetorical devices, be able to name the device. I just think that's something that I'd like to get better at. So there it is. I would definitely encourage everyone to read that, of course. And this is a good example of constitutive rhetoric. I just linked to a definition of constitutive rhetoric. It's a type of rhetoric that basically almost any politician would use. You can read more about it here. So here's the write-up of the rhetorical situation. I wrote this a while ago. I would probably revise it a little bit, but I didn't. Again, I'm a little more interested in the data portion and the analysis. This was me just trying to do a little bit more of a traditional rhetorical analysis as opposed to this rhetorical modeling process I'm doing. So we get to the thesis and line of reasoning. So the thesis or primary claim, I do like primary claim as well. I like that term. So the thesis I came up with, oh, this is a definition, I'm sorry. So this is just to help everyone. This is basically a definition of a thesis, definition of line of reasoning. Line of reasoning is a concept I definitely had never heard of before until I started researching more. I'll probably give credit to a lot of these YouTubers because I did learn a lot of this off YouTube. So I probably make a special thank you post and to everyone I learned some of these concepts from, or who have been really helpful along the way. So those are the definitions. So this is the thesis that I came up with. Our traditional vision of the American dream will revive the nation. So in terms of the line of reasoning, I did take time initially to read the speech, develop a line of reasoning, and I think I came up with a line of reasoning. It was, these are 3 or 5. I know it's in one of my archived spreadsheets. But I did later learn about this existing line of reasoning. It's not technically called a line of reasoning, but I found it was useful and could be repurposed as a line of reasoning. So it was taken from a book written by Brian McNair called An Introduction to Political Communication. So I include a link here so you can kind of see the book. It's an Amazon link I included. But yeah, so he talks about this in his book, and these are the kind of the 4 stages that any politician would use in a campaign. And so since this was a campaign speech, I did find it to be relevant, and so I used it. I did change the words a bit. I think establish identity, that's verbatim. Identify issues really was attack opponent. Maybe it was both. But either way, I found identify issues can include attacking your opponent because you're just identifying issues within your opponent. In Vivek's speech, he really didn't, he wasn't attacking an opponent. he's new to politics. I think his speech just wasn't like that. Again, just going back to Trump, he attacks his opponent all the time, and that's why it would be just a good contrast to this speech if I could find a good short one. But yeah, so I just made this identify issues, right, and left off attack opponent, present policy. I believe that's verbatim, and connect values is verbatim. And so, yeah, this worked really well. And so I just used it. I found this line of reasoning was relevant for this speech. I think it's going to be relevant for most political speeches, especially campaign speeches. So I did talk about this I talked about this pretty much in terms of how I came up with it in my line of reasoning video, but I'll just talk about it again really quick. So the established identity, what he's really doing is connecting himself to the American dream. With the identify issues, he's elucidating the issues that are a threat to the American dream. Present policies prescribing the changes needed to revive the American dream, and connect values, inspire a shared vision of the American dream. So the argument claims that I thought were relevant specifically to his speech in terms of how he did it. And these are not direct quotes from his speech. These are just argument claims that were inferred rather from the claims that he made within the speech. But they were just so established identity was I care about reviving the American dream, identify issues. We are in a national identity crisis, present policy. We must take action to revive the American dream and connect values. We will restore traditional values and ideals. So he feels that restoring traditional values and ideals, was basically the inspiration part here. So going down here, I also talked about this a bit in the line of reasoning video. Oh, by the way, too, I'm doing this freeform video because I'm not very good at speaking into the microphone. So this is just a way for me to get better. Those other videos I've been posting are kind of scripted, and they take a couple of takes, and I just would like to get better. Hopefully this helps me get better at speaking. Yeah, well, I mean, what's the point of improving in rhetoric when you can't really speak? That's pointless. So yeah, so I think what are we doing here? Oh, okay, yeah. So the identify issues claim was fairly evident. So this one, we are in a national identity crisis. This is just me kind of expanding a little bit about how I came about with these, the last column, the argument claims. So, and talking about how I inferred them. And so I just did a mini map here to kind of describe how I came up with the claim that maps to established identity. So you can kind of follow along, and I have reason, evidence, and in my next video post and blog post, I'll be going into the next step of rhetorical speech modeling, which is the argument claims. And so this is getting really interesting, and hopefully I'll have that up in a week or so. But yeah, I'm gonna have a little rant in there about how people currently argument map, and I think I'm gonna show a way that I prefer, works better for me. But this is a more traditional argument map, so I did claim with supporting reasons, and then these supporting reasons have evidence. So anyway, like I said, I'll talk more about the claims. So I did create a argument map of sorts, and I do say of sorts because basically what I did is I took out the speech statements verbatim, and I just organized them underneath each line of reasoning. And this gave me a kind of a topology in which to break it apart. And I needed to break apart these speech statements anyway, because I wanted to do a data analysis. So this was just kind of the first step to organize them by the line of reasoning. So, well, yeah, one of my thought processes, and I did document it here, is, you could break out these statements in a number of ways. So, for example, if you were going to prioritize rhetorical devices, like you would go through the speech and then make sure that the speech statements are broken out so that you can itemize by that priority being rhetorical devices. However, since I think it's most interesting to break them out by kind of more of an argument claim, and then the rhetorical appeals and the rhetorical devices, you can kind of see how they're using the appeals and the devices to support their overall argument, which I think makes the most sense and I think is the most useful. However, if you wanted to, you could still just break things out and say, I really do just want to prioritize the rhetorical devices. If you wanted to. And you'd probably your data would be a little different than mine because, for example, some of my speech statements, the way I broke them out, have multiple rhetorical devices in them. So I just kind of, when I hit that scenario, I just pick out the rhetorical device that I think is the most effective, in my opinion, the one that's most impactful. Excuse me. So yeah, let me go ahead and I'll show you the map that I created. Oh, before I do that, I think I did add a note here. And it was almost, so I don't forget. So like I said, this argument map, I'll go ahead and pull it up now. It does kind of start off with the thesis here, thesis / primary claim, and then it has each line of reasoning, and then I just organized each speech statement underneath that line of reasoning. And so you can just keep drilling down, and this is Kialo again, Kialo.com. What a great free service. I love it. Everyone should use this. So you can kind of see there's the 4 connect values, blah, 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 and you just drill down. So I did it that way. However, the next time I do this, I think I will be establishing, I'm going to keep the established identity line of reasoning isolated and combine the other lines of reasoning together. The other 3 lines of reasoning are more intertwined and dependent on each other. Yeah. So that's where, with the speaker, when you break it up like this, you do lose the flow a little bit. And when you're looking at an argument and how an argument is structured, the identify issues and the connect values and the present policy are very intertwined. And so, he does a really, he's very effective in jumping in and out, and one could support the other. The connect value could be very impactful because he just did a great job of identifying an issue and then connecting a value right after it. So I think it's just going to maintain the flow of the argument more. And since my primary goal is to study the argument itself, then I think it's going to be better. I have to try it out, but I imagine it's going to be better. So, and jumping back to this too, for the next post, the argument claims post, the next step in the rhetorical speech model process, my plan is to label each one of these claims, speech statements / claims, as either a fact, value, or policy claim. And that's just going to give an extra level of detail, which I think is going to be really useful, and I'll explain that more in the next post. But this is where I'll be coming back to this and supplementing it with more information. And yeah, this is just a topology. It has changed a little bit since I took this screenshot, but it's still just, yeah. Either way, it's so cool. I might get a tattoo of this, I think. I just love looking at that topology. So nice. Here is the quiz, and yeah, it's how many? I think I only included like 10 questions, but it does give an analysis and a justification for it. But obviously, since I'm still learning, I'd love for everyone to take the quiz, and if there's anything that you disagree on because you think a different line of reasoning makes more sense, is a better answer, yeah, please let me know. I think there's only one way to let me know, and that's within the YouTube comments at the moment. But I'd love to get that feedback, and I'd love to, yeah, learn. So moving on to the rhetorical data analysis, these are basically the highlights. I just created a table of these things that I thought were noteworthy. I did include some of these in the video. I think I thought of more after. That's what it was. So I added some, and then so I missed some good ones in the video. But this, that's the good thing about these blog posts. They're like living blog posts. I just went back and added. So I'll breeze through these. I can't remember which ones I added. I think maybe I just added some at the end, but. So number one, somewhat even data distribution between the four lines of reasoning, which you can kind of see. You can kind of see here. It's just wasn't, the established identity is a little lower, but I think, yeah, established identity is the smallest line of reasoning at 17%. Yeah. Majority of established identity, 83%, is within the speech intro. Yeah, that makes sense. Identify issues is the greatest line of reasoning at 33%. Yeah, and I do go into that in the video. Again, that's because his argument is just a little more complex. I did go back and forth in terms of which statements should really go where, and then I just landed on, yeah. But either way, that's the reasoning. I think that the argument was a good one. It's interesting because he kind of laid out an argument where he identified the issue, but it was kind of an analogy of adolescence. And of course, adolescence is something you can grow out of. So it kind of had this built-in optimism. So if you read the speech, you'll see what I'm talking about. Identify issues and connect values were evenly balanced at 33 and 31%. So yeah, I thought that was interesting because, you're talking about the negatives and then you're talking about the positives and how they kind of counterbalance. So I just thought that was interesting. And the speech conclusion is primarily identify issues at 50%. So again, this is kind of baked into that optimism that he kind of wove into his identify issues and adolescence thing. So here I just give some really quick instructions on how you can filter the chart. Hopefully, let me just test it out so you can go by speech section. You can see the intro, body, conclusion. This one, I don't think I include them, but you can actually drill down to each paragraph, which, I don't know, it's just something else. It's always nice to filter. So I ended up with 36 speech statements, and of course, here's the 4 lines of reasoning, so you can see the distribution here in the pie chart. And then the table just goes into, it shows you basically everything. So it shows the section, the paragraph, the line of reasoning, the argument claim being the line of reasoning claim. When I say argument claim, I'm talking about this argument claim, the argument claim that maps the line of reasoning, I guess. Yeah. And then the actual speech statement itself. So, and you can just go through the table. You can see them all in sequential order. There's no filters at the moment. And then if you want to, I usually filter by just, you can click on, if you're like, oh, I just want to see established identity. So you just click on established identity in the pie chart. And now the table is filtered to all those. And if you want to unfilter it, you can just really click anywhere outside of that. And yeah, so it filters everything. So established identity, you get 6 statements. Yeah. And then the last part is this rhetorical analysis speech arrangement summary. This is something I did just leave this in actually kind of for search engine optimization, if anything, just to get some extra relevant words in there. And this is something I created a long time ago. I might revise this too, just because I learned a lot since then. I haven't really read it, to be honest. Again, this is the part I think is the most fun. Yeah, and so I think that's it. So yeah, hopefully everyone will join me and watch the video, read the speech, and that way when I release the videos, you've already done your homework there and we'll have caught up. So okay, thanks a lot, everybody. See you soon.